How are you all? Good?
Good, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Andi, Faida, Farhan, Miran, Talita. Okay. So everyone already complete the assignment? Yeah. Please present your finding, your assignment. Okay. Talita is not completing.
Kenapa, sir?
The task you didn't upload the file.
Oh yeah, I forget, sorry, sir. Tapi I already finished it.
Okay, yeah, please upload to the because it's automatically scored, so please every assignment please upload to the Google Classroom because it's linked to all to the final scores. Now is I think we start from Andi. You can present first. Yeah, Andi. Okay. Or Faidat. Yeah, Faidat. Are you there? No. Yeah, Faidat, you can go first. Present your findings. Okay.
Sir, I'm just gonna read it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I just read it out? I don't
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
to share.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We discussed.
Please wait, sir. 1 second. Okay.
Yeah.
So I talk about the Order Baru in 1967 to 1998. The peasants supported the agrarian law carried out by President Suharto during his regime. However, the basic agrarian law, which came into force on January 1961 during Sekano. Agrarian policies changed completely during the new order by replacing the equality paradigm with the growth paradigm. This means that during the old era, agrarian development focused on the equal access to land for Indonesian people, while in the new order, it's focused on economic growth without being followed by equal access to land. The land reform program launched The land reform program launched by President Sukarno in 1961 failed, not only because of the political changes in 1965, but also due to the emphasis on land redistribution and distribution without being followed by access to reforms. This means that Indonesia's 5 reforms program that has been established by the UUPA, especially in reforming land ownership and control, as well as legal relations related to the land exploitation, in realizing equitable prosperity and justice, are not balanced in implementation and only to focus on granting land to smallholder without any supporting policies.
Yeah, it's good presentation. Yeah, you can define what actually the situation during the Orde Baru, the new order. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, you telling in the first and the end. Yeah, 5 reforms programs. So yeah, it's good. Now we go to who else? Who ready? Andi. Yeah, Andi, you can
Yes,
go.
sir.
Yeah, old order. You can go present your findings.
In this share screen, or I just read it.
Oh yeah, actually you can share screen. Wait. Okay. Yeah, now you can.
You see it?
Yeah.
Okay. During the old era, 1945 until 1967, at the time, the colonial politics and demands of dualism contained in the customary law and Western law gave rise to legal dualism in Indonesia. So to eliminate this feudal remain the government issue regulation policy, which as a whole regulate the implementation of land reform in Indonesia, such as I just go for I-555 regulation. Number one, law number 1 of 1958 concerning the elimination of particle land. The abolition of this private land inlines the government policy distribute land to the community, especially the economical weak, through the land reform program. And second, Law of Republic of Indonesia, number 2 of 1960, concerning production sharing agreement aimed to regulate land concession agreement with fair profit sharing between owner and cultivator, and granted a proper legal position for cultivator by affirming the right and obligation of both cultivator and owner. And third, law number 5 of 1960 concerning basis regulation or agrarian principle, the role of law number 5 during 1960 on the regulation of agrarian resource, especially land, is a reflection of the government on the mandate of the 1945 Constitution as stated in Article 33, Paragraph 3. And the fourth, law number 56, Perpu 1960 concerning determination of agricultural land area, the land which is the maximum access is taken by the government with compensation to be further distributed to the peasant indeed according to the provision in the government regulation UUPA articles paragraph 3 to the owner of agricultural land in the future will be more equitable and fair. And the last one, government regulation of Republic Indonesia number 204 of the 1961 concerning the implementation of law distribution and compensation regarding the technicalities in the implementation of law distribution and the purchase of compensation, where the technical explanation is the form of the type of land to be distributed. I think that's all.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, you can define actually five enactment during the old era. Okay, nice. Now it's going to Farhan. You can present your findings.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about agrarian laws and regulation in New Order era. So at the time, Indonesia restructured the structure and management of agrarian resources that were unfair as a result of the colonial system. And land reform accompanied by various follow-up programs, such as education on agricultural and production technology, credit or capital, and marketing. And also the arrangement does not only concern the function and use of land, but also the social structure, born as a result of the agrarian structure. And land reform in New Order era, beginning in 1967, was the presence of various sectoral policies such as forestry, mining, plantation, and others that were contrary to the 1960 UOP. And by the end of the first phase of the Repelita, or Rencana Pembangunan 5 Tahun, as well as the political consolidation process carried out by the New Order by conducting fusions for various parties political. So in the New Order era, the land reform was not only used to reform the land, but also as a consolidation, as a tool for political consolidation by the government. And the New Order continued to use the Indonesian Constitution, which is the 1945 Constitution, Article 33, Paragraph 3, and UUPA as the basis for the argumentation of the development orientation to be developed. But these bases are only a mere consideration, but not actually implemented in the land reform at New Order era. And there are at least three things that form the basis of the New Order's development orientation. First one is political stability, and the political stability, the term is a political view that leads to the establishment of stability and force as a tool of economic growth, so that the new rulers are very much in favor of the entrepreneurs. So in the New Order era, land reform was used as a tool to stabilize the political climate in Indonesia at the time. And for the second one is foreign investment. So the form of the presence of foreign investment has prepared in a legal basis, namely Law Number 1 of 1967 concerning foreign investment. And of course, the program practice of foreign capital support comes in the form of foreign debt. And so we see that in the New Order era, the government opened the foreign investment more, and this foreign investment was in the form of debt. For the third one is inequality of agrarian structure. So we can see that in New Order era, the presence of agrarian conflict continued during the reign of the New Order. In fact, this parameter is very fundamental when it is associated with the issue of development success. So these parameters are poverty, unemployment, and political freedom by providing space for the masses of the people to be actively involved in the policy-making process and distribution of income and wealth, and the impact of technology in the production process. So we can see that in New Order era, there are actually an ongoing problem, which is the inequality of agrarian structure that would resulted in poverty, unemployment, and political freedom. And the culmination of this problem would we see in the end of New Order era. I think that's also.
Good. You already defined at least three, the orientation, political stability, foreign investment, and agrarian inequality structure. Good. Now it's coming to Talita.
Yes, sir. I turn off my camera first because I think it's make my signal stable, sir.
Okay.
Can I share screen, sir?
Oh yeah. Okay. Wait. Yeah. Yeah. Now.
Mm. And the first one, my name is Talita Firiskiana, and this is my task is title is Agrarian Law after Reformation in 1998 prison. So this is the first of all. I have the history after the fall of the New Order in 1968. The Reformation era did not bring about significant change in agrarian reform. Then the legal products that are stipulated and planned in the agrarian and natural resource field are still in favor of the community and management of natural resource. The protection of human rights, or in Indonesian is calling HAM, can the application of good governance as mandated by UPA. And the next one. This is the agrarian reform in the reform era in Indonesia. When the fall of the old government, Indonesia entered into a new phase of the era of government called the reform era. At the time, there are demands for reform in all fields. In the agrarian sector, reform was marked by the People Consultative Assembly issue in Decree number MPR number 9 in 2001 concerning the agrarian reform and natural resource management, and MPR LI Decree number 5 tahun 2003 concerning the assignment of MPR leaders to deliver suggestion on the implementation of decision MPR by the President, DPR, MA, and DPP. And the next is Indonesian also, and then they have the new regulation is on the Presidential Decree on Kepres number 34 of 2003. BPN has authorized this institution to the first one is granting location permits, the second one is organizing land acquisition of development, and the three is settlement of arable land disputes. And next one is computation of compensation and land compensation for development. And the next one is the determination of the subject and object of land distribution, as well as land compensation, maximum access, and absent land. And the next one is determination and resolution of ulayat land issues. Okay, thank you. Maybe I got this not completely. Saya cuma dapat dari beberapa jurnal aja, sir. Karena saya juga lagi bantu sama Noval. So, this is my presentation. Sorry for any mistake. Thank you.
Yeah. Where is Noval? Yeah. Is not joining the class.
Soalnya dari awal persetujuannya saya yang buat, terus habis itu dia yang mau presentasi gitu, sir. Cuman bisa jadi saya semua.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay. Yeah, good presentation. You already also telling on time it marks. Okay. Yeah, during that time it's marked by forming the Ministry of Agrarian. Yeah, it is to resolving all the land issues. And then we goes to the last, Miran. Yeah, you want to share screen also or just?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay. You can start.
Yeah. Agrarian law. My name is Miran Hamid. Today I'm going to define the agrarian law. The agrarian law in Indonesia is actually divided into 3 eras or 3 part or 3 period, we can call it. The old era, which is started from 1945 to 1977, and the new era, which is 1967 to 1998, and the last rise, Reformation era. So as we see, the old era, which started from 1945 to 1967, where the nation freedom was new, and after the it was the beginning of freedom of Indonesia. In this era, the Indonesian agrarian law may don't have much development, but have some development due to the beginning of the country. So it has some development in this era. In this era, the development was like they make some committees, 5 committees, which Jogja committee, which is made in 1948, and Jakarta committee 1951. Soal committee 1955, and Suenjero committee 1958, and Suedrajwo committee 1960. The aim of the making committee to ensure the realization on prosperity for all, and this committee to make to pay special attention to the group who are weak, and also they paid special attention to the marginalized people by Dutch, the people who has been marginalized from their space and from their place. So for this, and and in this era, they give freedom and strength by encouraging the patient organization and open the mass organization for patient, to give them a representation to present their problem, and to highlight their problem. The right of individual existence of land equality, that they give the individual existence of land to individual, that was not in that time before. And they have enacted development from 1945 to 1967, like production sharing agreement mentioned in law number 60, determination of agriculture land mentioned in law number 56 of 1960, the implementation of land distribution and implementation and of compensation mentioned in 224 of 1961. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Okay, nice. Yeah. So it means that all of you is already understand. Yeah. Yeah. It's good to see all of you know all the materials. Then we go to the next. Okay. Yeah. So after the meeting class 3, 4, and 5, we telling more on background and development of agrarian law. So the next 2 days, which means today, we will telling more in. No problem. In systematic on land tenure based on UUPA or basic agrarian law. So we have to know the systematic or hierarchy of the land tenure, based on UUPA. So now we are not gonna telling what the history, but start from now until the next presentation, we will telling more on recently, the hierarchy of land tenure and so on. We will divide the discussion into 2 topics. The first is indigenous rights or hukum adat in the Indonesian names, and national rights and state control. Hierarchy of land tenure rights in Indonesia. So in UUPA, we can find this 4 hierarchy of land tenure rights in Indonesia. The first one is Indonesian's nation right to land. It means that all land in Indonesia, it is owned by Indonesian people, and the relationship between Indonesian people with the land, it is eternal, something long last, long time. And then the state's right to control over the land. It means that even or beside that, even Indonesian people have owned all the rights to the land, but if given by the states to the government to have an authority or the right to control over the land. Only control, not owning. Owning, but in the other perspective, which means controlling the authorities, controlling the relation, and so on. And then the other one is also ulayat rights of indigenous people. Even we after UUPA, so we only have one single agrarian law, which is based on UUPA, which is based on basic agrarian law. So it means there will be no more dualism law, which are from colonialism or for customary law and so on. But in beside, we still recognizing in UUPA, every ulayat rights, every customary laws that still recognized until today, because it still can use. What to say? But the law, it cannot. What to say? It cannot contrary to the UUPA. It cannot against UUPA. Then the last one is individual rights to land. So after the UUPA, so we recognize more into the individual rights, not only the community land rights, but individuals. Individual means like the whole title, and then individual land rights, it means land wakaf or mortgage on land, ownership on the flat unit, and so on. And then the regulation relating to the indigenous, it is in Article 18B, paragraph 2 of the 1945 Constitution, and then Article 3 and 5 of Law Number 5 of 1960 concerning basic agrarian law. Then regulation on the Minister of State number 5 on 1999, and then Ministry Agrarian Affairs on 10 of 2016. This is I put red color. It means that now it's not used again, yeah. But it is regulated in that time, but now it's not used anymore, because there is a new regulation, which is the last one, is regulation of the Minister of Agrarian Affairs number 18 of 2019. In Article 18 paragraph 2 of the 1945 Constitution, it is the state recognized and respects customary law, community units, and their traditional rights as long as they are still alive and still accordance with the development of society and the principle of the unitary states of the Republic of Indonesia. This is because a long history, because the long history between Indonesian people, but also the customary people. As long as they still alive, the customary community, so it still can be accommodated by the Constitution, as long as all their activities or their rights and so on, it is accordance with the development of our Constitution and also to the principle of our states. But in the term, okay, so we coming morely closely into the term. So how is the development of customary law community? So in Ministry in Law of number 5, 1999, the term is customary law community. But after the new one, in Ministry of Agrarian number 18, 2019, it changed to customary law community union. Even it is same, but it is we can see the difference in previous act. They call it customary law community, but after the new one, we call it customary law community union. This is what we call in UUPA how the important role of customary law in agrarian law. We can see in Article 3, considering of the provision, the implementation of hak ulayat, insofar as they still exist, so far as still they exist, shall we adjust as such as to fit in the national and property rights, communal property of adat community, and rights similar to that of adat interest. Based on unity of nations shall not be conflict with the acts and other regulation on the higher level. This is so even it still they exist, it is accommodated, but not be in conflict with the acts and other regulation in the other higher level. And then in Article 5, the agrarian law which applies to the earth, water, and airspace is adat law as far as it is not conflict with the national states' interest, and also not conflict with Indonesia socialism. So it still can be used. Okay, customary law community. Customary law community, because we consider that the important role of indigenous people cannot be perceived as objects in a development that must be sacrificed, considered to be extinct one day, but as compatriot as legal subject in the management of national agrarian resource. Because the customary law community, they have an important role, so they cannot be just an objects, but they have to be presumed or assumed as a legal subjects in the management of the national agrarian resource in the next. Customary law community, a group of people who have the same cultural identity, live from generation to generation in a certain geographical area based on ties of ancestral origin and or common residence, have assets and or customary objects that belongs together as well as value, system that determines customary institution and customary law norm. And the key is, as long as it is still alive in accordance with the development of society and the principle of the unitary states of the Republic Indonesia. This is the definition of customary law community. And then the definition of ulayat rights. It is the rights of customary law community units that are communal in nature of to control, manage, and or utilize, as well as preserve their community customary territory in accordance with the prevailing customary values and law. The difference between individual rights, ulayat rights, they are followed and owned by a community union, yeah, in a similar area. Yeah, it is very different with the principle of the individual rights. So community lands located in the territory of the customary law community, which is really still exists. Who is the subject of ulayat rights? So the subject of ulayat rights can be divided into two subjects. The first one is territorial customary law, and then the other one is genealogical customary law. So they call as territorial if the citizen residing in the same place, in the same area, same community, same place. Yeah, they living together in the same community, same place. Yeah. And then genealogical is caused because the citizen they are bound by the blood ties. Yeah, they have a blood ties. It is the example like maybe in Medan. How to say, Nasution, yeah. So many people using a name with Nasution because they are bound by the blood ties, because father from here and father from here and so on. If like in India, it is like Khan, yeah. But maybe some of the bond of the blood ties, it is quite hard to define the customary, because some of them they only using the name, but they didn't recognizing on, or they didn't assume their community as alive or as still continue or something. So they some defect today is the subject is based on the same place. Yeah, it means the territorial customary law. Criteria of the customary law community group by the World Bank. Yeah. There is 5 at least the criteria of customary law. The first one is the close relationship, yeah, with the territory of his descendant. Yeah, there is a close relationship. And then identifying and being identified by others and members of a different cultural group. And then customary people, customary law community, they have a native language that is often different from the national language. So beside they using maybe they using Indonesia or Bahasa language, they also have a native language they using yeah, in their community. And then they also having a customary institution related to the social and political fields. Yeah. This is some of the yes, the example in Indonesia. This is in Borneo, Kalimantan, Dayak, yeah. And then this is something like ethnic group, yeah, ethnic group, but they living in the same territorial. They also still following the customary activities. They have their own native language, and so on. And then this is Asmat in Papua. They also ethnic group also. They still following. They have a society institution or something. Yeah, it is now still recognized until now. Yeah, because ulayat rights are considered still exist if So this is the terms that Ulayat rights can be considered. Yeah. So Ulayat rights can be considered by the government if there is the customary law, society, and institution, and then if the territory where hak ulayat take place, it means there are a territory or a place, an area that they can prove the area, yeah. And then the relationships, linkage, and dependence on the customary law community unit with its territory. And then the authority to jointly regulate the use of land in the area of the relevant community customary law community unit based on customary law that is still in effect and adhered to by the community. This is the additionally need to meet the requirements. Because people who living in the customary law community, they have to register their land area to the National Land Office, yeah. And there are requirements, something like they have to given the proof that in the fact they are still alive, yeah, whether the ancestor or all the generation they have they can prove the generation, yeah, from their grandfather to great grandfather and so on, and they can prove where is the territorial, how is the genealogical or the functional of the land area, and it is also have to be accordance with the development of society. It means that they can living in the community, but they have to be following the development of the society, and then also it is also have to be accordance with the principle of the unitary state of the Republic Indonesia. So it means that they can living in this special area or in their community, but it means that they are still living in the unitary state of Republic Indonesia. So customary rights in Indonesia legal system, it is the characteristic, yeah, the characteristic of the customary rights in Indonesia. It is conditional and layered. It means conditional that it is in the fact it is quite hard for the customary law community to nowadays, yeah, it is quite hard because they have to given a long proof, yeah, a much proof to giving that it is really valid, and it is a true that that area is owned by their community, yeah. And the other, because it the other characteristics, it is layer. Why it's layer? Because they have many terms, like it cannot have a conflict with the national state interest, it cannot against the UUPA or basic agrarian law, it cannot against the law, yeah. So that's why the characteristic is conditional and layered. Ulayat rights are no longer considered if the government, they can abolish or they can skip the recognized, yeah, if the ulayat rights are already owned by an individual or legal entity with a land right. So if there is an individual people who can giving more proof that the area is already owned by him, yeah, and then if the area it is already obtained or released by a government agency or legal entity or individual in accordance with the provision of the legislation. How about the management of the existence of ulayat land? Yeah. So the management is the existence of the communal land is carried out based on the determination of the recognitions and protection of the customary law community unit. And this is what we're telling previously, that the application to get the ownerships, to get the registration, they have to submit the application with all documents and all the proof to the land office, to get the approval of the existence of the ulayat land. So after they get the approval, so the land office will giving a map or an area for the customary law community to have rights to living in the same area or using all the natural resource inside. What is the activities of the determination of existence? It includes the measurement, mapping, or recording the land register. Okay, because it is because we will split into 2 days. So I think this is because indigenous right, it is not so complicated, because it is only a little a little theory that we can learn regarding to indigenous, but in the next day we will learning more in national rights and state control. So during this topic, any question, I think, relating to indigenous rights? So the conclusion is the Indonesia and agrarian law in Indonesia, it means UUPA. Even we only have a uni agrarian law, we only have uni, not dualism again, but we still following the adat rules, customary rules. Because why? Because the form of the basic agrarian law, it gets the inspiration from the adat. All materials inside the UUPA, it is like the crystallization of the adat law. Because our farmer, they looking more on the how is the customary laws and so on. So that's why even now we are using a uni or a single agrarian law, but in UUPA also they also mentioned that all the customary law, it is still recognized by the state, but it must be following the development of the society, following the accordance of the principles of the other states of the republic. And of course, they also can giving the proof, giving the proof and the requirements, that they can prove they have the territory, they can prove that they have a people, they can prove they have a customary institution, they can prove there is a genealogical by Plutis, or they can prove by and that there is a person living in the same area but constantly, not living only 1 year from 2 year and then move again to others. Because some country, some state like Malaysia, they also cannot and didn't want to recognizing the customary law community, because in the fact they only living not constantly. In the example, they living in the area A only 1 year and then they moving to another area B and then going to C. So it cannot be asking for the land area, customary land area. So they have to living constantly. They can prove they have an own rules regarding to the customary law. So this is what more about customary law community. I think that's all. I think it is not so hard and not so much to telling, yeah, because it quite same with the previous maybe, because we also, yeah, I think that's all. And then the assignment, please look for an example of a case study of implementation, also implementation or the dispute resolution or something all related to the customary law community units. It means like you can giving the example how is Dayak people, yeah, the implementation of Dayak ethnic group with their land, and then you can giving the example how Asmat ethnic group, yeah, how Badui ethnic group they living in the customary law community and so on, yeah. You can telling a story or more how the implementation, and or if there is a conflict or if there is any problem related to the land, yeah, related to the land to the customary law, yeah, you can tell, and then we will discussing, yeah. Student we will discussing in the next day, and then after that we will telling more in national rights and state control. Okay, is it understand the assignment? Yeah, I think you already understand, yeah. But please don't be the same. You don't be same, yeah. Don't be same example. I mean, if someone already telling on Dayak ethnic group, so please find another, because there is a lot ethnic group in Indonesia. Yeah, I think almost hundreds or thousands, yeah, the ethnic groups in Indonesia. So find the special or the unique one, that ethnic group that they still living together. They also have an area to living. They have a customary agrarian law and so on. Okay. Yeah, I think that's enough because it's already 5. Yeah. Any question so far?
I have a question, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
We know that Ulayat Land is jointly owned by indigenous people
Yeah.
yang bekerja bersama kan. So how about the land? How to say? Soil in the mountain, can it be called Ulayat Land?
Soil in the mountain. Yeah. Yeah. So customary law community. Yeah. So they can ask an area which is area in the near of mountain. They can. I mean, but it is must be as how to say, a specific area. Yeah. I mean like a area, and then where is the limit? Where is the limit from here to here and so on? Then and then our government or state, they will make a map and then they will gazette into our constitution. It is like the map for Dayak customary law. So if our state already gazette and also giving the existence of the customary law community into the specific area, it means that the customary law community, they can explore, they can use, they can doing all related to the land. Even the extreme, they can sell also the land inside of to the specific customary law community. So but the other side, even Indonesia still how to say, still in the process on the enacted of the customary law act, ya, or in Indonesia undang-undang masyarakat adat. So nowadays undang-undang masyarakat adat or act of customary law community, it is still not exist. So it is still hard also for the customary law community to ask for the existence of the area of their area. Yeah, in the fact it is still hard. So, but in the theory, if a customary law community they already asked to the state for the existence of the area, a specific area, so they can use all, they can explore all the natural resource, even they can selling all the area inside. Okay, yeah. Any question again? Yeah, if not, so I think I assume that you understand, yeah, because yeah, I think it is not so hard to telling and learning more in Ulayat rights. So in the next meeting we will learning on natural national rights and state control. And also don't forget with the assignment, please find one unique ethnic group and also telling more how they using the land, how the relation the customary law community that you take with the relation to the land. The example like Daya, how they using their land and so on. Okay, I think Miran and Faidat, you can, I think for because Miran and Faidat, you are not so familiar with the ethnic, maybe you can for Miran you can using Dayak, yeah, so you can find more on Dayak, how they using how they living with their land, customary land. And for Faidat you can go to the Papua, yeah, Asmat. You can find more story on Papua, Asmat, how they living with the customary law. And then for the others, please find more ethnic groups, the others, okay? I think that's all for today. It's already 5. So everyone joining the class, only Naufal, yeah. So I will present all, yeah, except Naufal. Okay, yeah, thanks for today for the class, and keep safe, keep healthy, and inshallah we will go to the fasting month, so please prepare also. Yeah, good luck for all. I think thanks for today. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, sir.
sir.